the question that I asked is that both enslaved women and mistresses were affected more negatively by slavery than men were. You need to think about the 3 reasons why. Okay? That will also help you kind of focus each of your paragraphs better, because what you're trying to prove in each one is how you know that women were more negatively affected than men were.
Okay, so I shouldn't separate it into like how the enslaved women were affected and then how the mistresses were affected, rather than like focusing how like the power changed.
You can really talk about it either way. So if you want to talk about like 3 different like effects that it had on women, you can do that. Or you can talk about just the position that women had in the slaveholding world in general, and why you came to that conclusion that that's their position.
Okay.
Okay. So if you want to talk about like the position that because like as I like read this, okay, I want you to explain to me what the point is that you're trying to prove, because then I can help you more with your thesis.
Okay. So then I was trying to write how what the thesis statement was that both enslaved women and the mistresses weren't negatively affected by slavery, and then I was just gonna write like how.
Okay, why or why do you think that they're more negatively affected? Like just talk it out with me.
So then with the mistresses, they became more negatively impacted by like, as I wrote there, they became more brutal to like the slaves rather than like being like a motherly figure. And
so, but weren't men also cruel to slaves?
But I just wrote listed examples how in the movie she threw the glass wine bottle, and then he wanted her to stop, but then she was like, I wanted to punish him. And then also in the book how the woman, Mrs. Odd, wanted to push it further than her husband did.
Okay, so there's also a lot, so it's kind of like leaving out some information, because there's also a lot of circumstances where the men were certainly more cruel than the women were. Okay, so the question is asking about like their position within the world. Okay, so now in the United States, right, you can say men and women are equal. Their position is one of equality, and we know that because there's no job restriction. We know that because there's starting to be more equal pay. Both men and women stay at home, things like that, right? There's gender equality here. So you need to think more about what role you think women had in the slaveholding world. Okay, were they the most powerful? Were they the weakest? Were they somewhere in between? And why you think that to be true?
Okay, so then my thesis statement should be like, should I write about both of them? Enslaved women? Okay.
So you have to discuss both blacks and whites within your paper for women.
But then I don't know what to write for my 3rd paragraph. But like reason 1 and 2, I could just discuss the roles of like how the mistresses were like still commanding of the household, but they weren't like, it was like a matriarch. But then,
okay, so there's like a lot of different interacting roles here. Okay, you have the way that males and females in general interact. So you could do one on the way that males and female slaves interacted. You could do one on the way that males and white mistresses interacted. You can do one on how blacks interacted. How black male slaves interacted with black female slaves and who had the advantage there. Or you can talk about comparing just women. So really, like any of those combinations, you can compare. You can compare like the different positions based on race, different positions based on gender.
so I should just compare those like different class of people to each other?
Yeah, but you need to think of some overarching idea that you're trying to prove. Okay? So are you trying to prove that women are more vulnerable than men? Are you trying to prove that it didn't even like the position didn't even matter, and it was just the position of women was one that was really just tied to their race. So if you wanted to say that the position of women in the slaveholding world, what was more important at the end of the day was their race, then each of your paragraphs would talk about a comparison between the races, okay? Or you could, talk about women in general and show that they're inferior to men, and then talk about the difference between like black females and white females and how they interact with the slaveholding world. So really your thesis and your ideas can talk either or both about gender or about race, okay? You have a lot of like good scenarios in there. It's just, in a thesis, you want to think about your answer to the question, okay? And the three reasons that you believe that to be true.
Okay. No, because I thought like a thesis had to be like arguable. So then my original thesis was just like these are the positions of a woman, but then you can't really argue that those are the positions. Just, yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
Like I just wrote for my thesis originally that like the roles of like a slave mistress is like this, and then slave woman was like this.
Yeah, so you have to prove something with your thesis.
Yeah.
So if your thesis is that the position of women was inferior in the slaveholding world, that's just the beginning part of your thesis statement, okay? So you would say that women in the slaveholding world were inferior to men, as can be seen by, and then list out your three reasons. So women had to put up with more physical violence. Women had to listen to their husbands, anything like that. Okay, so you can still argue that. You can still say that women had more of a say in certain circumstances than men, but your thesis needs to list out your reasoning. Okay, so. Show you.
How to write an essay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so I can show you like an example of what I'm talking about. So, this was the question, did women play a critical role in the Civil War? You can't just say women played a critical role in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to understand why by reading the sentence what you're going to talk about in each paragraph. Okay, think of it, it's like a roadmap, like a summary of where you're going throughout your paper. So the three reasons I believe that to be true are they managed family businesses, they were nurses, and they were spies. And then my whole thesis, right, I can read this and know exactly what the whole thing's going to be about. They played a critical role through their management of family businesses, being nurses, and spying. Okay? Or they played a critical role through economic, health, and military ways. Okay? So you can, like, your thesis has to kind of reflect that format. Okay? It has to be not only answering the question, but you also have to talk about why exactly. And the ideal is to have a one-sentence thesis statement, but if you can't, you can always put it into two sentences. It really shouldn't go beyond that. But like that's you need to, because that'll also help you kind of organize each of your paragraphs and your ideas. If you think about the reasons you believe something to be true first.
Okay.
Okay? You could even say something like, women in the slaveholding world had an inferior position economically, socially, and physically.
Should I do that then?
Yeah, you can do something like that too.
So should I write that like women are inferior than men in the slaveholding society, but like politically, socially, and that's that one?
Mhm.
Or can I also write about like vulnerability?
You can talk about that too. So women were more vulnerable than men, economically, socially, and politically, or you can talk about like any combination like that is fine. But whatever position or whatever you're saying about women, you have to prove in 3 different ways.
Okay.
Okay?
So then for the social aspect, am I allowed to write that, like, since we know that from before women play like a different role than how they play in slaveholding society? Are you allowed to write that? Alright.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because it said like no outside sources, so I didn't
So
know.
you can like anything from this class. Like I don't want you doing like outside research,
okay.
but if like there's information that we've gone over, as long as you cite the course, you can do that.
Okay.
Alright?
Alright, that's it.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I didn't know like how to write my each paragraph.
Yeah.
But then like, because with the paper it just said describe the position of the woman.
Mhm.
Like I didn't know how to like make a thesis statement out of that.
Yeah, I know. Questions like that's the sort of question that you're going to get like in college
Yeah.
moving forward. And if you do any sort of research, it's not going to be like a direct question like what was the role that
Yeah.
women played in the Civil War, right? It's going to be more of this is your topic. You think about how you want to answer it. There's no one right way of how to answer these questions. As long as you address the question, there's lots of different things you can talk about, right? You can compare races, you can compare genders, you can compare different areas of like the slaveholding world, like we said, like economically, emotionally, all those things.
Okay.
Okay?
Alright, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me take attendance really quick because I didn't do attendance really. You can still come back.
It's really